What's up, everybody? This is Against the Spread College Edition. My name is Zach. I'm going to be your host. We also have Rich right here, Rich
Mm.
Rappa,
Yo, yo.
and Brennan Jamar.
Yes, sir.
So it's going to be a little bit different than the other NFL show that we do have. It's going to be college. We're going to talk a lot about football. We're going to have a lot of picks. At the end of the show, we're going to go over the college football playoff. A lot of things are going to be discussed about weeks in the past as well as in the future. So it's going to be a lot for you guys. I hope you guys enjoy it.
Yep.
Without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the first segment that we have, boys. It's going to be about last week. So we're going to talk about some games from last week. First game, Oklahoma, Kansas. So big game, big game. I know we were all, especially me and you, Brennan, we were watching this game together. Ended up being 33-38. Tell me a little bit about what you thought about it, Brennan, and then we'll go over to Rich after.
Hey, well, kudos to Kansas here. Snapped an 18-game losing streak to Oklahoma. Gotta love that,
Yeah,
man. I mean, Kansas
yeah.
coming out hot with the pick six on the first drive. I mean, golly, Kansas. I mean, hey, I took Kansas plus 10 here. Was loving every second of this game, although it was a pretty wild roller coaster to tell you the truth. But man, Kansas is really turning it around. These last 2 years, they've been way above what they used to be. I mean, this used to be a team that won one game a year. So,
Yep.
hey, big win for the fellas and rocking up the Big 12 a little bit. Um, but yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited
man.
to
I,
see
I, I
what they
really,
got going.
Brennan, I really think, yeah, like Kansas is coming around. Like Lance Leipold ain't no fucking joke over there, man.
Yep.
I mean, I think honestly, with the weather of that game and everything, it did lean to kind of an upset. But damn, dude. I mean, in a game where you would think that Oklahoma's got the run game going on, like they got everything, you would think Kansas had no fucking shot, especially with the backup quarterback. What's his name? Jason Bean, motherfucker, Jason
Yep.
Bean. Yeah, but
Jason Bean.
you would think seriously they don't have anything going on, but like they hung with Oklahoma. I mean, about as good as anybody we've seen this year. Texas
Yep.
hung with them like that, but this was a straight up
That's expected.
physical in the trenches kind of game. And Kansas came out there and played hard nosed football for 4 quarters, especially with the rain delays and stuff. You think the momentum would die after that pick six, and then I think they had another touchdown after that. It was 14-7 before the rain delay. But you think the
Mhm.
momentum would die because you're the underdog, but Leipold he got him going in that locker. I don't know when it was said. I need to see some videos. We need to see some Dan Lanning style videos, but he had him going, and it was impressive. It was really
And,
impressive
and
coming from
and
Kansas.
half of their home crowd ended up going home, so they had to play that
Hmm.
without the crowd they started with. You know.
Exactly,
Yeah.
it's another thing. As a football player,
Yeah.
you don't have a home crowd, and you're pumped
Yeah.
as hell. Big noon kickoff, and then come back and there's no crowd there. Like,
I
all
know.
right.
Big blow.
Pretty big game. I know it's pretty big game, pretty big thing for Kansas to happen. Only thing I wanted to bring up is the amount of turnovers in that game, and we know we talked about the weather. Rich, on your side, I think there was like 6 or 7 turnovers in that game. A couple of them led to a score for Kansas, kept them in it. So I think when you talk about upsets, there are a lot of recipes for upsets. Turnovers are mainly the big thing that
The
happens for them.
key.
So
Yep.
Yeah.
big
Well,
key for them,
I
big
agree
win
with
for them.
yeah, I agree with the
And
upset, Zach. But on the other hand, like I think the game's mostly on Dylan Gabriel because he didn't play to the potential that. I mean, I think people had him in top five of Heisman before the game, if I'm not mistaken. I just think there were turnovers on both sides of this game. I, I, I just I just think they got out coached or outplayed. One of the two. I mean, the run game was definitely it was the main game because of the weather, but the turnovers were pretty nasty.
Yeah.
They were in nasty spots from Oklahoma. Let's say that.
Hmm.
let's jump into the Georgia Florida game. This was a game that a lot of people before the game were kind of on the fence about. I know Kirk Herbstreit took them as his super dog of the week, plus 14 and a half. Um, I clearly went to Georgia, and I'm a Georgia fan. So I mean, you can tell by the hat, by the sweatshirt. Got a tattoo on my leg of the Georgia G. So I'm through and
Yeah.
through. I am going to be as blunt as possible and as unbiased as possible. So don't worry about that.
Wait. So
Geor-
give us your unbiased opinion then, Zach.
so on the game or Georgia in all?
Well, the
Just on
Because
the
I could
game
game
give
and
right
you both.
now.
Georgia,
So
and the game
We'll be
and
talking
Georgia
about
this year.
Georgia. No, we'll be
So,
talking about Georgia
yeah, we'll
later.
talk about
Yeah,
Georgia a little bit later when we talk about the college football playoff picks.
but the
But
game, yeah.
just the game in particular, it was 43-20 was the ending score. It was a little bit better than that. I know Florida scored on Georgia's third strings near the end of the game, so that kind of made the score look a little bad. But Georgia still covered. I was a little bit. I wouldn't say I was worried about the game. I just didn't know how we were going to come out to Jacksonville. It's always a hard place to play. You have it split down the middle, red on one side, blue and orange on the other. But I really think that Georgia came to play. They wanted to show that Carson Beck can lead them to a championship. Threw the ball to a bunch of receivers. I know in the first half he threw to like 7 or 8 receivers. So the run game got going a little bit. A lot of the outside zone stuff was working for Georgia. So I'll go to Brennan and just see how what you thought about the game and how did it turn out
Well,
for you.
I made an emotional bet. Being a Bama fan, I was on the Gators for plus 14.5 for sure. Just hoping to see them struggle a little bit. But damn, if they didn't look good without Brock Bowers. I mean,
Yep.
Carson Beck proved that it doesn't matter who he's got on the field with him. I mean, he's
They
slinging that.
boat raced
He's
them.
slinging that
They
rock,
boat
buddy.
raced them. Yeah.
Carson Beck looks beautiful. I mean, his just from down below. I mean, Buddy feeds through the ground and just throws seeds left and right. I mean, on the run, moving to the left, that one shoulder. I know he threw the lad across the field, moving to his left, cross field dart. I mean, just
Yep.
incredible. Dude should be in the Heisman talks at this point. I mean, I think this is the best offense Georgia's had ever, maybe.
And it's
Pretty much, I
weird.
think that it comes down to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the offense is
Yeah.
doing really well, and a lot of people were kind of wondering if Bobo was going to be the guy after the
Yeah.
first couple games. And it's kind of a reoccurring theme with Georgia. It was like that last year. They play down to their opponents, and when they play a good opponent, they play up, and they
Yeah.
usually beat
Oh,
them by
absolutely.
more than they're supposed to. So
Anytime
it's
Georgia
looking
gets
like that's
doubted.
going to. Yeah, exactly. It's looking like that's going to be the same thing this year. And Rich, do you have anything to add on the end of this?
It's just weird to me because I don't think we've seen a Georgia team like this. It's completely different than the last two champions. Yeah, they're both all dominant, right? But like the team last year was with a little more defense, a little more this, a little more that. But the team year before was all defense, right? And then this year it's like, okay, we're looking at a defense that is they're top 30, top 20,
Yeah.
but then
Top
the
10.
offense is like top 10, top 5, and it's crazy. I just I don't think the only thing that concerns me about Carson Beck is he does seem to sit in the pocket sometimes a little bit too long, but that's nitpicking at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
the run game was even looking good against Florida. The wide receivers without Brock Bowers were looking insane. Lad
Yeah.
McConkey is a legitimate
Stud.
thing to be concerned about, especially with all the other 5-star talent that they have at wide receiver. Um, yeah, I just think Georgia in this game just absolutely. And for whatever reason, Kirby Smart in this game has the best speeches as a Georgia. This is a Georgia Tech fan
Yeah.
talking. He has the best speeches I've ever heard any football coach besides any football coach just give
Yeah.
before
Ever.
a football game. I don't know what Kirby Smart
Well,
does.
I
It's to
mean, I
get,
think the thing about it
He
is, Rich,
hates
it's
Florida.
when you get a coach who played for a team, you get real passion from them. So you see when he talks about like he hates Florida, he's not kidding. He really hates them. He played for
Mhm.
Georgia,
Mhm.
and he played
Well,
against them when they weren't
he
winning all
doesn't
those
give the
games
same
either. So
speech. Yeah, he doesn't give the same speech for like an Alabama game in the fucking SEC championship, and then you're playing
yeah,
Florida middle of the season. Florida's middle of the pack, and then Georgia looks like world beaters all
yep.
season, and he gives a just flawless speech. And those players always come out ready to play. Another thing that surprised me in this game though was the special teams for Georgia. Um,
hmm
like that block punt. Uh, I watched it again, and it looked like they knew that Florida only had 2 back blockers, and so they just sent the house at them. And
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's a player decision on the field. They checked into that themselves, which is pretty awesome to see your team do that. But
That's what national championship teams do.
exactly,
I
exactly.
mean,
I do want to go
it's
into the next game, Utah Oregon, because it's a big one I want to talk about. Um, in before this game, I know that me and Brennan were talking about this before the game, and Rich, we kind of discussed this as well. I was really, really hell bent on Oregon winning this game by a lot. I thought they were going to win this game by
you were.
14 plus. I didn't think that Utah was going to be able to hang with them, and it turned out to be correct. But a lot of people were kind of conflicted on this game. So let me hear your thoughts, Brendan, about what you saw and what you're expecting from Oregon in the future.
I mean, man, dude, I'm loving Oregon right now. Usually, Oregon is a team I look at and it's like, oh, dude, they're having a great season, but wait until they play a real team. Wait till they get to the college football playoff, and then guess what happens? Majority of the time, they get smoked.
Right.
So, but I mean, there's just something different about this team, man. Obviously, I think the huge piece is Dan Lanning coming in. I mean, Bo Nix is just a quality quarterback. I think probably the oldest quarterback in the league right now. I mean, Buddy's played his fair share. I think he actually holds the record for most starts at a college football team. I think
In
he's got
FBS history, yeah.
55 starts now. I mean, when you bring in a coach like Dan Lanning from the University of Georgia, who just have been dominating recently, he brings in a different aspect to a team that's
Hard
always been
nose.
offensive minded. All they've cared about is, oh, we're going to try to put more points on the board than you. We're not going to focus on defense, like just because we know our offense can score a lot of points. So what Dan Lanning did was bring in SEC size guys to Oregon in a smaller league in the Pac-12, and it's showing. I mean, I think losing to Washington, obviously, I think Dan Lanning himself made a few mistakes,
You
like
got to
throwing
admit
forward
also
on
they
fourth
were
down.
away at
Yeah,
Washington, and
yeah.
that
I mean,
crowd
they're the
was
favorite,
insane. That crowd was insane.
but
I
I
think
mean,
that had a huge factor
I
into it.
I think they were the better team. I think Dan Lanning made a few questionable calls on going for it on fourth down on the like right around the 50-yard line or even on their own
That
side of
lost
the
in the
field.
game. They
Like
Washington
those
scored in two
are yeah.
plays.
I mean those punt they punt the ball down and Washington's inside their own 20. There's a chance you get a 3-and-out or whatever and get the ball back and go score. But yeah, I
Yep.
mean, geez, for Oregon to roll into Utah, a team that hadn't won or lost a home game in 18 games, I mean, that's a tough place to win, man. And they just
Yeah.
absolutely dominated on every part of the field. So I think
Well,
Oregon's one of the best teams in the country by far, and I think they proved it against this Utah team.
Go
yeah,
ahead, Rick.
and to play into a little bit into that, Brennan. I mean, this Oregon team is physical. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like if there is one team that the college we can talk about it later, but in the college football playoff that they projected right now that could match up with Georgia physicality wise, Oregon plays a brand of football that is conducive to that. I mean,
Right.
like they straight up to Utah, who is considered the physical team in the Pac-12. They they took it to them. I mean, like there were
Mm-hmm.
multiple hits in that game. I was like, oh, this could get a player kicked out. No, it's just a good physical football hit, and they just played them. I mean, they literally just outplayed them and just took it straight to the Utah Utes at home. And that's not something I think we've ever seen in our lifetime.
No.
Honestly, every betting rule I've known since I was about 18 was that just take Utah at home and you probably win a majority of them.
Oh
Yep.
But
yeah, of course.
I mean,
So, Rich, let's go into this Tennessee Kentucky game. This is a huge one I want to talk about because um, Tennessee and Kentucky before this game very comparable teams in the sense of middle of the pack, trying to get over the SEC East hurdle of Georgia, and both have not been able to do that as of lately. Tennessee wins this game 33-27. I know that Stoops was pretty upset with the officiating in this game. He sent a long 10, 20-page paper to the officiating crew in the SEC about this. So
that's so soft, man.
I will say this though. There was a lot of calls that I didn't love in the game, but it's hard to say because it's a game where it was a toss up in the beginning for me. I think either team could have won. I think the deciding factor in this game was Kentucky thought that Tennessee was going to come in and run the ball and only run the ball. They came in and threw as well. And Joe Milton actually played like the quarterback that everyone was hyping him up to be in the offseason. He threw the ball extremely, extremely well. Also, he did. I mean, he had those mix-ups and some things that he could have done better. But when you go to a couple weeks in the past, you've seen him kind of miss those slant routes behind the guy. You've seen him overthrow guys. He hasn't been very consistent. And I think, especially in the first half of the Kentucky game, he was pretty consistent. So they came out on top in this game. Brennan, do you have anything for this one?
I mean, big matchup for Tennessee, man. They can still hold on and have a shot at winning the East. I mean, they get to play the Dogs at home for the last game of the season, or second to last game of the season, I believe. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Georgia has a tough few games coming up. They got Missouri this weekend. They got Ole Miss at home next weekend. I mean, Georgia somehow manages to drop one of those games. Tennessee has a chance to win the East at home against the Dogs. So, I mean, tough game. They fought it out, man. It was a battle. Honestly, I thought Tennessee was going to get rolling early, and then Kentucky just kept fighting back. But Kentucky hasn't ever really been a comeback team.
Right.
So when they get behind 10, 13 points in a game, it's tough. I mean, shit, Devin Leary had a season high passing yards, 372 yards, but Tennessee
Yeah,
had
which doesn't
200.
happen, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee had 254 yards on the ground. Like you said, Joe Milton, I mean, he's throwing for 228 yards and a touchdown. I don't think that Tennessee team loses too often with those kind of stats.
Nope. Especially with their
So,
defense
yeah,
playing.
No,
Their
but
defense is coming along right now,
yeah,
which is
they
good
got
to
a
see.
yeah,
quality front seven. I mean, their run
This is the
defense
best
is
defense Tennessee's had
solid.
in a long time
Yeah,
because everyone thought that
yeah.
Josh
yeah.
Heupel was going to come in and just have a good offense, and he's kind of showing this year that he can also recruit defense.
Oh, yeah,
Zach,
absolutely.
you told me before this game, you know, Tennessee's front seven is insane. And if
Mhm.
Kentucky is put in a spot where they have to throw the ball a bunch, regardless of Stoops saying that these calls are going to be they were bad or whatever, if Kentucky has to throw the ball a bunch to get back into a game, you don't see that happening. And I mean, Larry played good, but if you told me before the game that Kentucky had 42 rushing yards from their starting running back,
Yeah,
I could tell you who won that. I mean,
yeah,
I could straight up tell you who won that game.
exactly.
I mean, the front seven from Tennessee is really physical, and they're playing really, really good football right now. Um,
Mhm.
they're shaping up to be. I mean, they kind of have the similar archetype as like Alabama. If Joe, I mean, this is if Joe Milton keeps playing like he does. If Joe Milton plays like his potential is, then Georgia has serious problems playing this team. But you know, I think it was a good game. I just think that with the calls and stuff, it's definitely outplayed them, and that front seven they had no shot of running against. And even if they kept passing, there was going to be a turnover that was eventually going to come. So I think Tennessee's a good football team. They just keep pushing through. I think eventually they'll break the SEC's curse, but with Georgia
Yeah,
there, I don't.
but I just want to
So,
throw a little.
hey, let's
I want.
go
I
ahead. Go
was
ahead,
just going
Brennan.
to throw a little tidbit in here. Like, hey, if you're listening into our bets later, had Kansas plus 10 last week, Oregon minus what, 6.5 last week, I think it
Oh
was.
Hmm.
yeah,
And then
We had a
Tennessee
really good week last week.
minus 3.5. I mean, all those
We had
Tennessee
a
was a
very
sweater, but
good
locked
week
it down.
last week.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go into this Louisville Duke game. Talk about Kentucky's rival a little bit. Um, this was an embarrassment to Duke. Now I know
Mhm.
we did talk about Riley Leonard with each other. We were talking about Riley Leonard earlier. He is
Still
hurt. He was
banged up.
banged up. I know he was banged up in the last game. Came in this game. Decided to play again, even though he was recommended not to. And didn't play well. I think he went 9 of 23, something like that.
yeah, it
And
was ugly.
got
Yeah.
beat 23-0. Now his defense couldn't stop the team, but also when your defense is on the field as much as they were, kind of doesn't help. So let's talk a little bit about that. Brennan, kind of go into what you saw in this game and if it surprised you at all.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely surprised me. I'll tell you that. I didn't think too much in the thought of Riley Leonard still being super banged up, and I mean, he ended up leaving in the fourth. But I mean, just to see him score 0 points on a Louisville team. I mean, I know Louisville's not always touted for their defense, but their defense is pretty good. And but I thought Duke's offense has been pretty. They're a physical football team, and they can run the ball down your throat. They can score on some drives, but I mean, Louisville, I was reading up on it, man. It said they played a low-risk ground and pound style game, and it worked in their favor. They slowed it down a little bit instead of trying to go fast. They slowed it down, controlled the game. So they only had 117 passing yards. I
Yeah.
mean, Gerard Jordan, their running back, 163 rushing yards with 2 touchdowns. I mean, Louisville's defense went crazy. 6 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and an interception. I mean, you don't lose many football games with those stats. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
and also the big takeaway I think for me is, if you're Duke in this situation and you're getting beat like you were, I mean, taking Riley Leonard out for precautionary reasons is not a huge
yeah,
deal. I mean, you're
that's
getting
fine.
beat by a lot anyway. Go
Yeah,
ahead and take your star quarterback out and
Yeah.
let him live another day. Rich, go ahead.
yeah. No, to be honest, Riley Leonard probably shouldn't have even played this game. I mean, it, he was obviously injured if he couldn't finish the FSU game. to
Right.
to be honest with
Yeah.
you, and the Duke offense has serious issues. I think in general that maybe now with the scouting coming out that people are starting to recognize because they haven't scored a single point since Riley Leonard got hurt last game.
Jeez. Wow.
So they're a big goose egg right now. It's ugly at Duke. I maybe Louisville figured that shit out. Um,
Yeah.
but the end of the story is that I mean, if 163 yards rushing is just
Well, Riley
for one
Leonard
running back.
Riley Leonard is a very good, say dual threat, very
Exactly.
athletic kid. So when you
Take
can't
away
get out of
half
the
his
pocket,
game, and
you
then
can't
yeah,
exactly. Like we talk about making teams one dimensional. You're making a singular player one dimensional, who is the difference maker on that team. It changes the whole game for them every game. So with that being said, though, I want to go into my personal favorite segment that we're going to have the rest of this season. We're going to go in the college football playoff. Okay. So we're going to have their
boo,
picks on the left. What they decided was the top 4. Number 1, they had Ohio State.
terrible.
Um, I don't know if I love that. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't know if I love Ohio State at 1 for them. That's what they did though. So let's kind of go to number 2. They had Georgia. Um, number 3, Michigan, and number 4, Florida State. Um, my reaction initially is for Georgia. I love that when I say we, sorry, I don't want to be biased, but I love that Georgia is number 2. I think we have been ranked number 2 the past 2 seasons and went on to win the championship in both. Not
Yeah.
upset about it.
Here we go.
I'm being
Here we
I'm
fucking
stating
go.
the facts. I'm stating the facts. I'm not being biased. I'm stating the facts. So also, I did want to bring up Michigan being at 3. Did you guys, obviously you've noticed that they're under a lot of investigation right now. Some things are going on in that
Yeah.
program. I know a lot of things came out tonight as well about him being on the sidelines of the Central Michigan game earlier this season when they played Michigan
It's
State.
bonkers.
It's getting kind of
Bonkers.
crazy. It's getting kind of crazy. And then Florida State being at 4 for them. I think I think that's more of a record deal for them. I think the amount of or the teams that they've played, they're ranking that pretty high right now over a
Yeah.
team like Washington who has not played well recently. I think they're going more off of records this year rather than the eye test. Because if you look at Florida State, in my opinion, the eye test, I think they're a good team, but I do think that they have a lot of holes that, especially when their offense coordinator making calls, I think that they can get kind of hurt with. Brennan, go ahead on this one. We're going to go quick on this college football playoff, their decisions, because we got to get into ours.
I mean, yeah, if it had to be me, I'd have the dogs at 1 just because I'm an eye test kind of guy and an SEC guy myself. So, I mean, Georgia obviously is Georgia. I think how it should go is it's your number 1 spot until it's taken from you. And Ohio State, yeah, they have had some big wins on their schedule, but it's not like they had holy shit big wins. They won
Right.
against good
Exactly.
teams
Yeah,
and skated
exactly.
by good teams. It's not like they're out here dominating teams left and right. But yeah, I mean, I think those are a good 4. Maybe switch them up a little bit, but I think those are a good 4. I think what held Washington out is the fact that everybody thinks Oregon is still better than them, and just because Washington is right there on the cusp, but they have to put Oregon below them. But I mean, I think everybody thinks Oregon's the better team. I think everybody thinks Oregon might be the second best team in the country, right behind Georgia. So no, I mean I don't mind it. I think it's a fine 4 for now, but obviously it's subject to change as the season goes on.
Go ahead,
No,
Rich.
I agree completely. I think it's kind of a cop out though. I mean, if you're going to punish Michigan for being the best team in the country that everybody's been talking about recently, then I
Yeah,
think you should just take them completely out of the playoff if you're going to do that. And I think 3 ranking is maybe a punishment, but I don't see any reason to put Ohio State over them with
yeah,
any statistics or even the eye test or anything like that. Michigan looks like they could play Georgia and Oregon and play with them.
yeah.
Um, but
Let's
I
let's
see if you switch Michigan or Ohio State, whatever
let's
to
go
me.
into our picks compared to the college football playoff picks. So we're gonna have a college against the spread against college football playoff. At number one, we're gonna have Georgia. Um,
Of course,
Pretty concise
the
on this one. I feel like
dogs.
that we all as a group think that
Yeah,
Georgia is the best team as
agreed.
of right now. I think they play up to their competition. I think when they play really good teams, they're going to play really well. At number two, we got Ohio State. Just flip flop compared to the college football playoff. I think that Ohio State's a really good team, but I do think that Georgia has the edge right now based off how they have played against better
Yeah,
teams. Ohio State
No wow factor though.
no, no wow factor, especially against that game against Wisconsin last week. Number three, we have Florida State. Um, and then number four, we're going to have a shocker for you guys. We're going to have Oregon. Um, I
come on.
think, I think that
Eye
Oregon,
test, baby.
in my opinion, could be number two on our list.
Yeah,
I can't discredit Ohio State and Florida State at the moment. You know, you have to give them their flowers in this situation. You have to let them be where they are. Things are going to change. It is the first week of college football playoff rankings, so things are definitely going to change. Oregon wins out, they get in. Ohio State went out, they win. Florida State went out, they win. You know, these are what's going to happen right now. So this is subject to change. Anything could happen any week. Brennan, give me your thoughts on our playoff rankings at the moment.
no, I love them. Obviously, we all agreed on this. I think Oregon's a top 4 team for sure, even though they took the loss to Washington. But we discussed that. We thought, there were some mistakes made on the coaching aspect. Florida State, man, good football team. Got a lot of stars on their team. I mean, I love the way they play. They play fast. They've had a few hiccups, but who hasn't had a few hiccups this year? They're still winning football games nonetheless. Ohio State, what makes them scary this year, to tell you the truth, is their defense, man. They're winning
Mhm.
games by defense, which isn't common for Ohio State. So to see them just play the ground and pound game, and so what, they beat Notre Dame 17-14, but they're kind of protecting Kyle McCord at quarterback. They're trying to do as little as possible to help him not make a mistake, because I just don't think they've bought into that trust yet. But I think it'll be scary if he really
They
starts
eventually do,
conflicting
yeah.
things. I mean, because obviously they have the
He's
best wide
never going
receiver
to
in the
earn their
country.
trust. He's never going
Yeah,
to earn
like,
their
but
trust.
he at the end of the day, he's got the best wide receiver in the country on his side, and Marvin Harrison Jr. So I mean, at the end of the day, that guy's going to get open, and he can make some plays for you. So I think that's what scares me about Ohio
You
State,
can
and
you can
obviously,
only save the quarterback for so long until he gets
yeah,
exposed. I feel like he got exposed a little bit against Notre Dame um, in the
yep,
last drive of the game to help them win that game. He almost throws a pick, doesn't end up happening, but it goes straight through the Notre Dame's player's hand. He also almost gets sacked. I mean, I don't think he is the guy everyone is saying he is.
yeah,
And I think that people are starting to realize he is not as good as they first made him sound. Probably the
yeah.
first quarterback in about three. I think their last three quarterbacks have all been first round picks. This will be the first guy that hasn't been. No shot he's a first round pick. You couldn't pay me to think that. Rich, do you have any opinion on this before we move to our next segment?
No, I mean we're eye test guys around here, so Georgia's the best team in football, so obviously we're gonna put them there. Um, Ohio State, I think you could flip flop this with Michigan based off of whoever wins that game. Florida State, I think even if they win out, they're kind of locked at that 3 position. They're good, yeah, they got a lot of talent, but I don't know. Something about watching Florida State makes me nervous every
I
single
agree.
time
Yeah.
I watch them.
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is. Their quarterback is prone to
It's the
like,
lack of creativity in play calls. That's what it is.
yeah. I mean, I watched the whole Clemson game with Florida State, and they were literally throwing go balls all game.
That's
Like,
it.
can we
Yeah.
not throw a cross? We got the best receivers in football around here, and we're throwing go balls the
I think
entire
they
50-50,
just trusted
flip a
their guy
coin.
over that corner. That's it.
I agree, but at some point you got to trust them to beat them on another route. Like a
No,
slant.
I
You got
agree
to
wholeheartedly.
stem them on a go and then go slant. I don't know.
Hmm.
It's something about that? They can get locked into a play call and then it's just I don't love it. But they're good. They're a
Yeah.
really good football team and they can play football, so they're there. And then Oregon, I believe, is the fourth best team in the country, regardless of how these rankings shake out. I think, they can play football with anybody on that list.
Yeah.
And it's up to Washington to prove us wrong, in my
Right.
opinion. Like Washington played a great football game against Oregon, but like we said, there were coaching mistakes. And, you know, uh, just the brand of football Oregon plays, I think, is built for the college football playoff. And I don't think that they're going to go away anytime soon.
I also
Agreed.
wanted to mention the Michigan being out of our top four. I think, and I discussed this with you guys. I think the reasoning for
Yeah.
it is because there are a lot of stuff is going on with their program at the moment. I don't want you to think that we're ranking them out of the top four just because of that. It has a huge part of it, though. I will say, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be honest with you.
Yeah.
Huge part of
Yeah.
it because the reason why is I want them to prove that when you are under a microscope and you can't cheat anymore and you don't have that manifesto, that you can win a game and you can be as consistent as all of these critics have said. You're the most consistent team. You're the
Yeah.
best team right now. Show me now.
I,
Show
I
me
will
now.
agree with that point, but maybe we need to have another segment on another show. Is the Michigan allegations actually like a huge thing? I think every college football team does it to some degree.
But not to
Um,
the degree where
could be wrong.
you're wearing sunglasses that have
Yeah.
a camera in it. I think that is where you
Yeah.
turn into
That's
going from just regular scouting, where you're looking at an all 22 angle and stealing their signals.
Yeah.
Like Brennan Venables is very, very known to do that at Oklahoma. But someone like Jim Harbaugh and the University of Michigan, who are known as high moral guys who don't
yeah,
ever
Michigan men,
do anything wrong,
motherfucker.
the Michigan men. No, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. You can't do that. And now it's all falling on this one guy's shoulders. I don't think it's completely onto him. If your head coach doesn't know that your team is cheating, you are not a good coach and you're not
Yeah.
But
running
the
the
thing
program
is,
well.
the thing is to me, if they win out, they can just prove everybody wrong and say fuck you at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
That's
I
true.
mean,
That's true.
like if they're that good, then they should be able to prove that they are that good. And I think on top
But
of that,
yeah.
they might be that good. I think
They
they
also
are.
they still
It's
haven't
just
played
with the
anybody yet either. I mean, I
yeah, but
get they have beat the hell out of everybody they play, but they I mean they really haven't played anyone yet.
but
So they
now
got Penn
now with
State
the
coming
the
up
issue is
uh,
with the amount of distraction
next
they got
weekend. But
going on in this program until the end of the season, you have to be really
yeah,
really focused to beat some of these teams. Like Ohio State ain't
yeah,
gonna lay down and die. Like
yeah,
you got to be really focused to beat Ohio State, and then you got to be
yeah.
really focused to win the championship game. Like I don't know, it's a lot
I
of
agree.
hurdles they got to go
All
through.
right, let's go into the next segment we have. We have our personal games of the week. This is the games that we think are the most important at the moment, the games of that are going to have the most impact on the college football playoff. There's a couple categories that we kind of break this thing down into. Our first game, though, is going to be Georgia versus Missouri. Reasoning why is because we feel that this is for basically the SEC East. This makes or breaks Georgia's season as well as
Hmm.
Missouri's. The spread right now is 15 and a half, Georgia. Now, I kind of want to just say my 2 cents on it, but I'll kind of stay out of it. I don't want to be biased on this one. I think Georgia is coming together finally. And I think Missouri has an explosive offense that is going to be kind of scary for Georgia's defense in their first real offensive test so far. They're going to have deep balls thrown on them all game. They're going to have deep over crossing routes. They're going to have outside zone runs, inside zone. Their defensive line is going to have to play impeccable. Georgia is getting healthy at the correct time, though. They got a lot of guys back this past week that really showed out. kind of why you see the defensive line last week looking a lot better, getting a lot of pressure. A lot of those guys are coming back. So I want to give it to you, Brennan. You kind of give me your look on it this week.
Yeah, no, obviously, we've been saying, man, huge implications here. But what we also said is Georgia gets up for the big games, man, and people are looking at this game as a big game, and it's in their house. I mean, I would put Athens, Georgia, up there as hardest places to win a football game at this point.
Place is
But
loud.
I mean, that place is, and you know what's crazy is they don't even have a full bowl stadium. They got a whole side that's open, dude. Imagine if
Right.
they freaking
Exactly.
completed that stadium. I mean, good lord, dude. They get loud. They're gonna
It
get
already
drunk.
fits 90,000 plus if you complete the stadium. We're
I mean,
talking about 120 in a
yeah.
fucking stadium.
I mean, I'll
Which
tell
would
you what,
be
man.
amazing. I would love to go to a game with 100,000 plus Georgia fans
Yeah.
in it. That'd be amazing.
I
Woo,
mean, I tell
man.
you, I was a Georgia grad as well, and Athens is a damn good place to be on a Saturday. So I'm taking the dogs here big. I mean,
Uh,
I want to make it another emotional bet and take Missouri plus 15 and a half, but I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Missouri is a good football team, but I think Georgia's proven, and they're going to continue to
yes.
prove that. After, hey, guess what? Guess what happens when you put Georgia as number 2 in the college football playoff rankings? They're going to show you why they're number 1. So I think
Yes.
Georgia's got
No,
they, I mean, they got something to play for, and that's to get that number 1 spot back. And that's all they need.
I'm, I,
They need
yeah.
this much, they need this
I,
much to
yeah.
go, and that's what they got.
You don't give a winner a reason to win. Like it's the same deal with the
Yeah,
Patriots
exactly.
when they were good. Being a Patriots fan, you don't give them billboard material like shit they can just put in their locker room all week
Yeah,
and be like, here we go. So
yeah, exactly.
Missouri is a good football team. I don't want anybody to get it wrong. They're a good football team. They have some of the best wide receivers in college football. But do I think they can compete with Georgia? Not with that secondary. And then the run defense, like Zach said, is coming along. He knows better than I do in this scenario. You're not going to be able to get a run game going. So can you trust that quarterback? We'll see. He's going to have to throw in some tight
He's been pretty
windows,
good.
and
He's been pretty good.
he's doing very good. I'm not saying he's doing
Yeah,
bad, but he's going to have to throw in some tight windows, probably tighter than he's had to throw in all year.
Yep.
And
yeah,
I just don't see if you get one turnover against Georgia, you're at least losing the game. Now, by the spread, I have no idea. But if Georgia gets a turnover on you, they're going to convert off that turnover. Their offensive line is also getting more physical, Georgia. So can Missouri do like out physical Georgia?
Right.
Ugh, I don't know. I don't think so.
Let's go into this next game. We got Kansas State and Texas. This is something that we kind of discussed a lot. I even thought about taking Texas -4. It does worry me a little
mm,
bit without Quinn Ewers. I will
no,
say, I know he's still dealing with that arm shoulder injury, and it is day to day for him. But let's kind of go into it a little bit. I think what we've seen about Texas is they have an amazing offense. As we know, they have exceptional weapons at the wide receiver position. Their running back has been phenomenal. Their defense has showed up when it has to. I think the only reason why they lost that Oklahoma game is because they did not expect Dylan Gabriel to run the ball, and he ran the ball for over 100 yards against them. And I think when you can't adjust in the second half against that, it helps you lose a little bit. So my take on it is I think Texas is still an amazing team. I think a lot of people have forgotten about Texas since they lost to Oklahoma. You haven't heard them at all talk about Texas. So, Brennan, give me your take on this game and kind of what you think is going to happen.
no. Texas is definitely a full-rounded team, man. I mean, being an Alabama fan, watching them roll into old Brian Denny and just beat
Dismantle
us down.
you guys.
I mean, beat us down.
Dismantle.
That was hurtful. I don't think they'd do that today, but I mean, great football team all around. I think they can help out a backup quarterback like Malik Murphy. I think he will have to play a much cleaner game. I mean, he didn't have a terrible game last week. He made some good throws, but he threw an interception in a big spot, and he also had a fumble. I mean, with a hot team like Kansas State, man, they're on a freaking tear right
You're gonna have
now.
to
They're
play.
just
You're gonna
beating
have
the
to play
hell.
really good. You're gonna have to play
Yeah,
really
he's
well.
going to have to play a really clean football game because you turn over the ball against a team like Kansas State, they're going to do something with it, just like Kansas did to Oklahoma. I mean, I would. I'm a little nervous for Texas here, but I think the edge in the game is them being at home Malik Murphy being at home, not having to deal with an away crowd, and just making sure he limits his turnovers. And I think Texas can pull this out. But I think this is going to be a scary game for Texas.
Yep,
Yep.
I
I,
agree.
I
Go ahead,
agree.
Rich.
I mean, Kansas State has been clocking people recently. I mean,
Hmm.
absolutely just fucking clocking people. How much of that do I think is the teams being bad versus Kansas State being good? A decent amount. I mean, if Texas's defense can stand up and stop, they Kansas State is a very balanced team. They have a lot of like rushing pass yards are about the same every single game. If Kansas State's or Texas's defense can stand up and stop that run game, we're talking about them being one dimensional. And then, like we said earlier in the podcast, if a team's one dimensional, I don't like the chances of them coming back in a game or playing a game when they have to do one thing that they haven't done all year, the
Mm-hmm.
entire game. And then I think, Texas's run game is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And that running back is, he's not in the Bijan Robinson conversation yet, he will be by the time he's in the NFL. So, we'll see. I think that's good support.
Richie, huh?
It might be a little hot take, but he's been playing phenomenal this year. So, it's a good thing to have that running back to lean on when you're a backup quarterback.
It's always good to have a good run game, especially when you have the backup quarterback in. Okay, let's go to Oklahoma and Oklahoma State is our next game. I don't want to spoil anything for later. I do want to say one of the hosts has Oklahoma State plus 5.5. So what I'm going to get into
Oh,
first, I do
six,
want to
six.
say
We got
that.
him at six, bud.
Oh, you
We
did
got
get
him
him
at
at six. You
six.
did get him at
Yeah,
six.
we
I
got him
kind
at
of spoiled
six.
it. Oklahoma, um, as we talked about earlier in the game in our recap show, they did lose to Kansas this week. I do want to deter people away from the game in general. It's going to be a fun game to watch. But only thing I want to say about this game is the weather was really bad in the Oklahoma Kansas game. A lot of turnovers happened, 6, 7. I can't remember the exact number. Dylan Gabriel wasn't able to play his game and how his offenses ran. I also think that Oklahoma State is a decent team. They're on a good little run right now, and I am very proud of their coach. Because his mullet is amazing, and I just love him for that. But
Fucking
I do
best
want to
mullet
say
in
this.
football,
Like
baby.
Dundee.
I do want to say this.
Like Dundee.
I think Oklahoma's a little bit underrated this week. I think some people are leaning toward Oklahoma State and looking for Oklahoma to be in a kill spot. I don't agree with that, but I will pass it over to you, Beej, and give me your take on the game this week.
No, man. I mean, I think it's a very scary spot for Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about this, fellas. There are what 5 teams in the Big 12 right now that are 4-1
They're playing for it,
in
baby.
conference play. I
Yep.
mean, this is
Hmm.
a crazy spot. Crazy spot to be here. But no, Oklahoma. I think they're going to bounce back big. I mean, I think Kansas was an embarrassing loss. I mean, turnovers killed them at the end of the day. I'm gonna ride with Oklahoma on this one, but I think it's gonna be a scary game for sure.
Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, no, I completely disagree with y'all. I think Gundy's figured it out. The mullet's got the power going. Oklahoma State's finally found their run game, and that's at the end of the day, that's what Kansas State was able to take advantage of in a game that was rainy. There were 3 turnovers both teams, so it wasn't like one team had the turnover advantage. Like they both had turnovers, and I think Oklahoma's leaving the conference next year. So is this rivalry going to be a thing at the end of the year? Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, Oklahoma doesn't play them last, so it's not like it's on rivalry weekend that they'll be playing them anymore. So we'll see. I think uh, if Gabriel doesn't play like Gabriel's capable of, it's going to be a long game from OU fans.
yeah.
Let's hop into our next game. We have Washington USC. Um, a game I'm excited to talk about a little bit. Reason why is because Washington's played kind of bad the past couple weeks after they beat Oregon, kind of been on a down slope. And I think that might be off of your winner's high and playing down to your competition. USC has, in my opinion, become the frauds of um, NCAA football. They're the frauds of college at the moment. I think this is kind of the same thing I thought about Lincoln Riley's team when he was at Oklahoma. They played really good all season. They played their ass off. They beat teams. And then when it came down to it, they lost the game because their defense was not good enough. And I think that he's having the same exact problem he's been having at Oklahoma that he has at USC right now. He doesn't recruit the defensive positions as he should. So when I say that he's not recruiting the defensive position as good as he should be, Oklahoma was a really bad defensive team, and they always were, except for that one year when they had Baker and Georgia played them and beat them. Good comeback though. But I will say this: USC is going to struggle as long as he doesn't recruit the position like he should. If he starts recruiting defense like he recruits offense, that team will become a powerhouse team. He just hasn't done it yet, and he doesn't care about the defensive position because guess what? He still has the same defensive coordinator that he had in Oklahoma, and his defense is still just as bad. But I'll go into it with you, Brennan, and just let me know what you think about this game.
No, yeah, I mean, I think you stated it. I mean, USC might be one of the most unlikable teams to me, just because the whole hype around Caleb Williams, man. I
It's
mean, I just can't
disgusting.
stand it. I mean, people, this younger generation, people are coming out. He's best college football quarterback ever. It's like, dog, he's good, man. But like, geez, like there are some studs that came out of college football before, and like there nobody remembers any of them. I guess. I mean, Cam Newton, Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson. I mean, just a few of them. I mean, I don't know, but
They don't forgot about Burrow.
yeah, I mean,
That's in
yeah,
Bennett.
Joey B. Jeez, Joey B. Okay, shut up. No, freak, yeah, Joey B. Jesus, I mean, he's good, man, but he's not anything we haven't seen before. And like Zach said, I mean, is Lincoln Riley, if he's never going to get a defense, he's never going to win a championship. So, I mean, with that being said, this game, I think Washington just, I mean, call the offenses even, but guess what happens when one team has a better defense than the other? That team wins. I think Washington wins the football game. I think they cover. I think USC might hop on them real quick, but I think the overall physicality of Washington over the span of 4 quarters is obviously going to
Maybe
get
it's
to them.
also a
Just
comeback game for Washington too. You know,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
they get back into the shape. You know, they're
I
playing a team
agree.
that everyone thinks is good. So let's hope they get back into shape as well. I mean, I don't know, Rich. Do you think that Washington's going to be able to kind of get their defense rolling again in this one and their offense again?
I think Washington's just going to handle them. I mean, they're more physical. They played with Oregon before, and we're all
Yeah.
about physicality here too. And
Right.
then let's talk about Penix Jr. is having a better year than Caleb Williams.
Really?
Yes, he is. Yes,
Where's
he
the
is.
hype? Where the
Yeah.
fuck
Where's
is
the
the hype? Where's the hype? I mean,
He's got some hype now. I will say he does have some hype.
not as much as
Yeah.
this guy that's supposed to go first in the draft and be the best quarterback of all time. I think the other another ATS guy, Christian, was sending us something where they would pick Caleb Williams over like Peyton Manning. It's the hype's
Yeah.
not deserved. I don't
No.
believe the hype's deserved. If Lincoln Riley's not going to recruit a defense, then they don't deserve to win.
Yeah.
And they're not going to win in this spot.
Nope.
Let's go into this LSU Bama game. I am so excited for this game. Every year, it's the same amount of hype. It doesn't matter how good a team is, how bad a team is. It doesn't matter if LSU has 4 losses when this game's played. It doesn't matter if Alabama has 0 losses like it is usually. But I wanna hop into this one, man. I love Jaden Daniels. I think he's an amazing quarterback. I think he does a lot with a little at that LSU team at the moment. I also think Alabama is there. It's such a confusing game though, right? Because you usually have this Alabama offense that is high power, high flying, big wide receivers going down the field, throwing deep balls, chucking it. I mean, I'll say this: the only thing that the quarterback can do right now, Jalen Milroe, is throw the ball 60 yards. Because if he throws
Yeah.
it from
Right.
10 to 20, he's throwing a fucking interception. So
Yeah.
that's my
Well, he's the
standpoint
best.
on it.
He's the best quarterback in the league on 20 yards or more, I believe. I
Dude,
mean,
100. That's what I'm saying.
Just fucking made up the
100%.
stat.
He throws
Yeah.
that bitch. If he throws it plus 20, he's throwing a touchdown for sure. If he throws
Yeah.
it 10 to 20, he's throwing a pick 9 times out of fucking 20. So what I'm saying is the
Yeah.
guy's good, but he's very wishy-washy, and he has played better
Mhm.
in recent weeks. I will say that, but I don't know. I think that Alabama defense is coming on like you'd expect the defense to look at Alabama, and LSU is struggling in that aspect this year. I mean, they're allowing more points than they have allowed recently. I know they lost some guys to the NFL, so the defense doesn't look as good as it should. But Brennan, do you have any? I know, you're a little biased on this one,
Here
but do
we
you have
Yeah.
fucking
anything on this
go.
one?
Yeah, no,
Here we
no, man,
go.
I'm pretty freaking nervous about this one, man. I'll tell you the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah,
Their offense is, I mean, obviously top three offenses in the league right now. Jaden Daniels is a boss, but no, man, I think the edge in this game is going to have to be Alabama's defense. I think we're going to have to force a turnover or two, hopefully get a pick or something. I mean, I think we can keep up because their defense isn't that great. I think offensively we've been clicking recently. I mean, Jalen Milroe's looked way more comfortable. We're hitting the deep balls. We're starting to run the ball a little bit better, like what we were expected to run the ball like. I mean, Chase
right.
McClellan is a stud. I love him back there. But no, I mean, I think the edge is going to be our defense in this game. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I mean, I'd have to take Bama like 38-30 if I had to guess
Oof.
somewhere along those lines. Because I don't think you can stop LSU every time. I mean, you're going to stop them a handful of times, but no,
That's the
I
thing.
mean,
How many times are you are you expecting these teams to? Because if I was in the position of Alabama, I want to slow down the game. So I'm wanting to
Yeah.
run the ball a lot, throw a lot of screens, throw a lot of
yeah,
wide
that's
receiver
true.
bubbles. I'm trying to slow this game way down so LSU gets the ball half the amount of times they've been getting it all year. And I
Yeah,
think this game is going to be a big on possession and time of possession. So if Alabama, um, has a couple forced errors. They have, two interceptions, a fumble,
yeah,
two fumbles. That's where it could get tricky for Alabama because I think LSU is a really good team on converting those on those.
yeah,
So, um,
No, Zach,
ri-
Zach, and to that point completely,
yeah,
I think we're seeing a new age Alabama team. I think it's the same style that we saw in 2012, but it's like
yeah,
zone read now.
right.
So like they're heavy on running the football, and then they're heavy on getting their defense rest and being able to capitalize off of what their defense does. Um, we'll see. I mean, LSU's offense is coming in hot, so how good is
yeah.
that Alabama offense against that defense, and can they keep up with LSU? I don't know. At least it's at Alabama, I guess.
Yeah, I know one thing. I know
I
one
think
thing for
that's why the
sure.
spread is it is.
I'm not touching anything on this game. I'm letting this
They
thing
said
ride how it is.
-3 because they have no fucking idea who
Dude,
wins.
this shit, and
Yeah,
I have it on my notes. Fucking confusing ass toss up game. The only reason why
yeah,
they're favorites because they're at home. It's a fucking
exactly.
pick 'em. So
Yeah,
Exactly.
I am so excited to do this. I know we always have our own bets that we do every week, but we are going to go into our best bets of the
Let's
week.
get it.
We are going to have a record as a show. I also wanted to ask, in the comments, if you do, if you're watching, I kind of want you guys to give us some names you think we should have for this best picks of the week for us,
yeah.
best bets.
I like
So I
that
know that
idea.
Josh Pate does the Ramen Noodle Express. You got the guy from On Three who has his as well. If you guys have an idea for what we should call our bets of the week, go ahead and just comment, and we'll take those into consideration when we're picking our name in the next coming weeks. But Rich, your picks are first, so let's go ahead and dive into those. And give us a little explanation on why you chose them.
All right, let's get into it. My first pick of the week of the season is, I believe, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Okay, well, it's Iowa State, or yeah, Iowa State first. Look, look, man, the Cyclones, they're playing for a championship right now. They've been coming along. They had an ugly loss early, but that some teams, it takes them to get the shit beat out of them by a bad team to come along. I think they've figured it out a little bit to the point where they can, uh, run the table. It's going to take a little bit of help, but I think they can run the table, and I think this is a good spot for them. And then the Oklahoma State Oklahoma game. We're talking
Oof, this is
Gundy.
the one. This is the one right here, buddy.
We're
This is the
talking
one.
Gundy. We're talking the mullet
Woo!
dude at home playing against Oklahoma, their rivals that are leaving the conference for one of the last times, and they have the sweet victory like all the motivation you need is knocking them out of their conference championship for the last time ever. And then you get like eternal bragging rights, I think, is
Yep.
that how that
Yep.
works? I'm pretty sure that's how that works. So, and then on top of that, you get to go play for the conference championship and knock somebody else off. So, this underdog story of Oklahoma State and the fact that they may have figured out the run game. And I think Oklahoma, coming off a big loss, they could be down a little bit at home in Bedlam. It could get ugly. It could get real ugly. What you got,
Uh,
Brennan?
Man, I'm going old. Who I got first? On Notre Dame -3 against Clemson. I mean, give me the Fighting
I love
Irish
it.
in
I
this, man.
love it
This
so
is just
much.
this is one of those games to where it scares you because it's almost like this is way too easy. But no, I mean Notre Dame is a damn good football team. They have two losses against a field goal loss against Ohio State, and then I mean a 3-point loss against Ohio State, but and then Louisville. I think I mean they may have just been overlooking them because they were playing USC the next week, but I think Louisville kind of surprised them a little bit. But I mean those two games you'll take them either way. I mean, tough losses, but coming into Clemson 4-4. I mean, Clemson hasn't beat a good football team, guys. They literally haven't beat a single good football team. They've lost to every challenging football team they've played. I think Notre Dame walks in here, and another little fact I wanted to say: you got Dabo Swinney on
There you
radio
go.
shows bitching at fans. I mean, they're a dumpster fire right now. They don't know what to do with their program. I mean, they're probably going to bounce back if Dabo finally decides to go to the transfer portal. But until he
He's not
does
going
that,
to.
I don't think they're going to compete in this league because it's what you have to do at this point. Um, so yeah, give me Notre Dame Fighting Irish -3 all day. I love that pick. I think it's going to be an easy win. And then next, I got this is a risky one, but Ole Miss -3.5 against Old Texas A&M. Um, I'm picking this because first of all, I hate Texas A&M. No, Ole Miss, man, they're fighting for a spot in the West. If LSU can somehow upset Alabama and Ole Miss wins out, goes on the road and beats Georgia, I mean, they're playing in the SEC championship. So this is a big game. I know that it's a look ahead spot because they are playing Georgia next week, but I think they do have the understanding that they have to win this game to even have a shot to get anywhere else. So they have to take it a game at a time. And I mean, at home against Texas A&M, I think Jackson Dart is a very good quarterback. I think they can get over the top of Texas A&M. It's going to be tough to run the ball, but if they can establish somewhat of a run and get Jackson Dart and some QB draws, get him out. I mean, because I know against Alabama, Jackson Dart was running all over the field on us. So if they can get a few of those in and just come over the top of Texas A&M, I think they handle this game easily at home and look ahead to facing the Georgia Bulldogs next week.
I
That's
like it. I
all I
like
got.
that pick a lot. I like that pick a lot. I'm gonna go into my picks now. I have some under the radar ones, some Sun Belt picks. Love it, by the way. First, I got to go with JMU -5.5.
Come on, baby.
Dude,
Love JMU.
JMU is
I love
America's
this
team.
team. One reason why I love this team, my high school football coach played for them. I was an All-American safety at JMU, so I'm always going to kind of root for them. And then when they moved up to Division One, I was
FBS.
so excited to start watching them play and being on the big screen. Finally, playing some ESPN games last week. I had them -12. They ended up winning only by 3, but it was a rough weather game. They didn't play well. But I will say this about their defense, and this was really has kept them in a lot of the games, and their offense also is extremely balanced. But their defense has the most sacks in FBS right now, as well as tackles for loss. So I think if you look at that against a Georgia State team who likes to drop back about 70% of the time, you're going to find
Yep.
JMU coming out on top in this one. And I think they win by a touchdown or more. So that'll lead me into my next pick, going with the Georgia Southern Eagles. Gonna have them
Yeah.
Gotta,
-2,
baby.
buddy.
Gotta.
Gonna have them -2. Love this a lot for them. I'm really surprised it's only 2. I think the only reason why that is at 2 is because they're playing on the road against Texas State. Um, I think these teams are kind of comparable in some ways. I do think that they're both pretty balanced. Um, when it comes to the yards allowed on defense, I think that Georgia Southern is pretty pretty uh pretty good on that side of things. I think their defense is not great, but it has kept them in a lot of games. I think we were talking about earlier, Brennan, Georgia Southern would have won that Wisconsin game if it wasn't for their quarterback making a lot of mistakes in
No,
the red
yeah.
zone against a
4 or
very,
5
you got to admit though,
interceptions, I think.
he threw like
Brennan's one of the best quarterbacks.
Dude, he
Period.
threw like 7 interceptions and also had a fumble. It was like 8 turnovers that game, completely on him. They win that game if he doesn't do that.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, and also, you saw how Wisconsin kept up with Ohio State. So Georgia Southern beats Ohio State, you think, guys?
I mean,
No,
hey.
but
Hey.
Come on.
but no, that's so I really love Georgia Southern at 2. I think they win by way more than that. I think they could win by 10.
It's a
So
touchdown.
yeah, that's kind of my outlook on it. But dude, I've had a blast with this first episode, guys. I am so excited for the rest of the year.
Yeah, come on.
I really think we got into it at the perfect time. A little late, but I will say college football playoff rankings just came out, and we're getting right into the thick of it. It is the best time for college football right now. We got so
Absolutely.
many teams that could be in it. Top
Best
10's
time
looking
of the year.
amazing. It's the best time of the year. You can't think of anything better. I'm so excited for the rest of the year. Glad I can do it with you guys. And thanks for watching the podcast, guys. We'll see you every Wednesday, 12 o'clock. So thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Yep. Thank y'all.
Hey.
See you.
Peace.